Alrighty. We are now recording.
Yay.
So, now that we're recording, allow me to repeat what I just said. We will be modeling one of these 3 crates for next week's homework. You are not modeling all 3 crates. You are modeling one of the 3 crates. You are not texturing it, and we're just trying to get it as accurately as possible. I'm looking at the microphone as if it's a student. Great. So, how do we model the crates as accurately as possible? Let's talk about it. First step to modeling the crates as accurately as possible is to sign into Photoshop. Later, give me a second. First step to modeling the crates as accurately as possible is to reverse image search. You want to try and find as much references for these crates as possible. If you right-click on any of these crates, you go ahead and search it up with Google, you will find references to what this crate is. This is a military surplus crate. Wow, here's where we got the image from all those years ago, and here are the exact dimensions of that crate. You can type those dimensions into Maya on a cube, and then you have a perfectly sized reference for how big your crate should be. This goes for all 3 of the crates. I highly encourage you to go and find your own references. I will be using these measurements when we start modeling this crate. But for now, I'm going to quickly log into Photoshop. Yes, my email. Thank you. Great. I'm going to great. File. We're going to talk about this crate. Hello. Thank you. Great. Isn't that great? Thank you. So, now that I've imported my crate into Photoshop, I'm going to make my canvas size a little bigger so that I can talk about it in more detail. Huzzah, great. Now that I have my crate set up in Photoshop, you'll understand why that will be relevant later. I'm going to go back to Maya, and we're going to start by setting our project. Okay. So, to set our project, I'm going to open File Explorer. I'm going to pretend that I plugged in an external drive. This is my external drive. I'm going to make a folder. New folder. I'm going to put some fun name on it so that I know which one it is. File. Set project. Where am I setting my project? That folder I just made. Great. Boop. Set. Oh no, we don't know if that's a workspace. Create default workspace. No errors. Hooray. Step 2. File. Project window. Make all of these files. Except. If I do that, I go back to where I set my project, and now I have all of those files. Hooray. If I go into the scenes folder, yes.
Do that last part one more time.
Yes. So, File, Project Window, just above Sept project. Click that. It'll ask if you should make all of these projects in that, all of these files in that project folder. And then we said yes. And then it will make those files in the folder, because that is what it is programmed to do. Boop, boop, boop. Go back there. Here they are. Now, from here, whenever I save my project, it will appear in my scenes folder. So save this as crate demo. There it is. Hooray. So, I would also strongly encourage everyone to open Maya today and follow along, but you're welcome not to. So, as everyone might remember from the first week of class, Maya's default units are in centimeters. Does anyone know how to convert from centimeters to inches? Please tell me someone can convert from centimeters to inches. Yes.
Oh, I was gonna ask.
Yes.
I
Okay.
can't see my
You can't see Maya?
like I opened up Maya. But
Yeah. Oh. Click this button that looks like a grid. There you go. Congratulations. The grid has returned.
Maybe you like flip it over.
Any other questions before we? Yes.
It is 2.54 centimeters per inch.
2.54 centimeters per inch. That is correct. So, if you happen, actually make it just so I can have this at the ready, I've taken a snip of my website where I found the dimensions for the crate. So, if I go to my dimensions of the crate, they happen to be in inches. Well, 90% of the time, these dimensions are listed as length, width, height. Just gonna point that out. Length, width, height is the standard dimension organization. But if we refer to a cube's channel boxes, you will notice that they are listed as width, height, depth. So let's convert those around. We'll pretend that height is the last one. So that last digit, which was height, 9 inches, that'll go here. Up, 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 9. Our width, or our length, is 46.5, first number. 46.5. Up, up, up. That's 460, but 46.5. Good stuff. And our depth, that second number, 14.13, yes.
Now, for the height and stuff, does it go 9 inches above and 9 inches below the grid?
No, it'll go 4.5 inches above and 4.5 inches below the grid because it attempts to have the center of the object, if I hit W, is right smack on the origin point. So it goes out from there. Now that I've inserted the values, well, I made this a bit too big, 13, there we go. Now that I've put in the values in inches, I can convert that to centimeters, right? We can do that math in our head, but you can also pull up a calculator. 46.5 0.54, 118.11, or we can set our scale value to 2.54. And if we set our scale value to 2.54 at all times, up, 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 it has automatically converted it to centimeters. If you do this, you'll notice that the grid is too small. That's because 46 inches is about a yard and a half. The default grid isn't that big. So we can go to our grid, display, grid settings, click this habitable button over here. You can set this to, say, 200, because we want something that's more than 100 centimeters. Grid lines every 5, subdivisions every 5. We can just take a look at how this will look like. Now that's a grid. That gives us plenty of space to work on. Good stuff. Now, as was previously mentioned, half of our crate is below the grid. We're going to fix that by hitting the D key. This is a new keyboard shortcut for all of you. If you hit the D key, you will move from this happy little widget to this weird one, which has both the arrows and the rotation axes. But if you drag this widget around, you will not move your cube around. Instead, you are moving the pivot point of the object. What do I mean by this? Well, if I return the pivot point to normal, and I rotate it around based on this pivot point, you will see that it spins around the center of the object. But if I move the pivot point over to one end and rotate the object, it is now spinning around that new pivot point. Did I lose anyone with that? Great. So what we're going to use this for, making sure that it's in the center, I will hit D, hold the V key, and that way it'll snap to some vertexes. If we drag it to the bottom of our crate, it'll snap to the bottom of the crate. I can then hit W or move tool and hold X to drag it to snap to the grid. Well, now all of my crate is above the grid. Correct. Yes.
Do that again.
Great.
Mine is
From the start.
So after the D key,
Yeah, you hit the D key, you hold the V key,
I moved it around.
and then you drag it down. And that has positioned it down to the bottom. I also appear to have made my grid too small, so I'm going to make my grid big again. There we go. And then I can hold the X key after hitting D again to hide the widget. If you just hold D, hit D again, it toggles between. Hold X, drag so that it snaps to the grid. Huzzah. It's all above the 0 line. If you go to your side view, you can actually line it up so that it hits the axis. This is slightly hard to do in perspective view. Very easy to do in any of the side views. Yes?
How did you get the dimensions of the box here?
Right, so you reverse image search the image. If you, where did D2L go? There it is. Here's D2L. I right clicked it. I searched image with Google. I got some results. I looked at the first result. I get this happy little thing that tells me how big the box is. Great. We don't really care about the interior dimensions, so you can ignore those, but the exterior dimensions are very helpful. Now that we have our exterior dimensions set, this cube becomes our new reference. So we can go to layers, create layer from selected, boom. That is the maximum size of our crate. This is where our crate will live. Our crate is not allowed to exceed that size, except for the ropes. I don't believe they took into account the length of the ropes. The ropes can stick out of it. So, I am going to start by duplicating this cube. Oh, let me undo the layer. There we go. I'm going to, before I make my layer, duplicate my cube. That is Control D. Click the cube, Control D. Select the first cube. Make a layer. Why are you like this? Thank you. Selected. Make the template. Good. Cube. And here's the other one in case I ever decide to use it. Now, when we look at the crate is made out of multiple planks. You do not have to make each plank its own individual piece of wood. It doesn't have to be individual cubes. It might help. So let's start with that. Assuming that we want to build this thing from the ground up, what you might do is attempt to figure out how thick each piece of wood is. Any guesses?
2 inches.
2 inches is a good guess. Can you tell me why?
I don't know. 2x4s pop in my head.
2x4s pop in your head. 2x4s is an excellent option. So let's start with 2x4s. Let's make a 2x4. I have created another cube. I'm going to make it 2 wide by 4 long. And I'm going to give it some height. 30. 20, 30. Yeah, 30 is a good round number. I have created a 2x4. Except that my 2x4 is not currently adjusted to inches. So I'm going to make my scale 2.5, 2.5, 2.5, and I believe we actually made it 2.54, didn't we? So let me adjust that one more time, 2.54. Great, I have created a 2x4. I'm going to rotate my 2x4 around roughly to where I think they are, relative to the reference. We know that there's a 2x4 straight down the middle of this crate. So here's a 2x4. Quick. Lift it up. I can hit spacebar, compare it to my little template box. Move it so that it just rests above there. Great. And scrunch it in so that it fits in that box. Yes.
Whenever I do Control D, I don't see the poly view.
How?
Like,
What's that?
yeah, like when I do, like that's how it normal the first one, but then when I do Control D, it shows it.
Right. So, if you create a polygon primitive, it will be able to have stuff in the channel box. If you duplicate an object, this is not a polygon primitive, this is a copy of what could have been a polygon primitive. So instead of being able to do anything in the channel box, you can't. If you want to use the channel box, you have to spawn a new object. You can't use a duplicated object. Good question. Any other questions while we're here? Yes.
Okay, so, me?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, cool. I got the 2x4 up
Yeah.
here. How did you scrunch it?
With the scale tool,
Okay.
that is the R key.
Thank you.
Great.
How do you, what's the button or whatever you press to, like, whenever you're rotating to get something to snap to a certain degree?
J.
J.
J is snap to rotate. Yes.
Thank you.
2 questions. One, what'd you set your grid size to?
I set my grid size so that it's big enough that I have plenty of grid to work with. Currently, I set it to 200.
Okay, and how'd you get to where it has the outline box for like for reference?
Oh, this?
Yes.
Right. So, I will explain on this cube. If I have an object selected, I can go to Layers, down here in the bottom right corner of my channel box. I can create layer from selected. That gives me a new layer. You should, if you're going to have multiple layers, get in the habit of naming them. So I'm going to name this test layer. Okay. And then, I will undo this space and use underscores because I always forget that. And then you can click this third box, the one that is empty, and you can toggle it to template. That is the letter T, at which point it becomes an outline. You can toggle it to R, which makes it so that you can't select it because it sees it as a reference object. Or you can make it normal, and then you can select it and move it around again. You can also hit the V and make it invisible. So I just have it on T. And then if you ever want to get rid of a layer, you can right-click it, and there's a delete selected layer option. Yes?
2x4 is rather fat.
2x4 is rather fat. This is true relative to our reference. I don't know, that's not much of a question, so I don't know
Well,
how
I
to
was
answer
saying,
it.
like, I think mine is rather, like, mine does not look like yours.
Interesting. Then I will get to you in a second. Yes?
I can't find the page with the size references.
You cannot find the page with the size references?
So,
Interesting.
I had to do some digging.
Yeah? Oh, yeah, you're supposed to, but I would encourage you down the line to find to do the digging yourself. However, for the purposes of this one, how can I? Let's just do this. Okay. Does that work? Nope. Okay. Copy link address. I am copying links that I have found the dimensions of the crates into the project description so that you will have access to them. Oh. Ta-da! If you click on these links, well, if you click on these links, because apparently if I click on these links, it asks me to update the topic. Let's try it again. Okay, great. If you click on the links, you go to the websites. So there's that one for that crate. This one, the orange crates, you'll have to go in and find a, yes, a correct crate, yeah.
How do you snap the object to the grid? Like I changed the
X.
placeholder. Alright.
Hold the X key while you are moving it. And that'll snap it to the grid lines. Good, good. Your 2x4 looks fat. Let's find out why your 2x4 looks fat.
I think I might fix it. Okay, so here's
Yeah.
the copy. We good?
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Alright, sweet, cool.
Now, you'll quickly realize that that 2x4 might be a bit too big. So, all of you only have one monitor. So at this point, I will show you the next bit of Magicraft. If you are like me, and you want to have your reference open on the same window, or open at all, I prefer to have two monitors. I encourage you to use the labs in the other rooms because you have two monitors to leave your reference open. If you are unfortunate, as we are, and we happen to only have the one monitor, I can go into my, I can save the image from the internet. I'm going to save this as a PNG. File, save as. Hello, quick export to PNG. Am I crazy? Export. Quick export to PNG. Thank you. File, great. Documents, good. And if I have that image on my computer in Maya, I'm going to go to one of my side views. Let's go to my front view. I'm currently in the front view. If I click View, these are the menus in the viewport specifically. If I go to View and Image Plane down at the bottom of the view, View, Image Plane, Import Image. I can go find my image. I save it in my Documents folder. Oh wow, a crate. Ding! Well, there it is. And that crate image will now exist in space for me. And I can scale it up so that I have the reference image in Maya. I'm glad that the crate is fine. Why is the crate fine?
Good question.
Good. So,
How much trouble will you get in if you turn that in?
if you turn in the image plane of the crate,
That is a crate in Maya.
that is a crate in Maya. No, I will be deducting major points for only turning in the image plane of the crate in Maya.
What would you do in like 2 views?
Put the image onto a cube. I think that will be
You
good.
just gotta crop it up.
Oh gosh.
Do a bit of rotating and you're good.
I would encourage you not to.
We just leave in the reference with our project.
Now, I will warn you that you can rotate and scale this, but it is a flat image, so don't do that. One thing that you might be tempted to do is to attempt to rotate it so that it lines up with the square so that you can perspective view it, right? If you line this up in such a way that it's like, that looks like it fits inside the rectangle almost, you're not going to be able to do that. But that is for just the specific case. On other projects, you might find orthographic views of a crate, dead-on shots. And if you do that, then you might have some good reference. Unfortunately, I have failed to find good reference for this crate, so we're stuck here. Now, we've got this wonderful 2x4 lying where it might go on the crate, and we see that it might just be a bit too fat. So instead of making it a 2x4, I'm going to make it a 1x2. Oh, that looks like it fits correctly. So I'm going to hit the D key on my 1x2, and snap. What? Hello? Please? Undo. Hold V and snap my thing to the top of this Monday. And then I'm going to hit W again and snap it to the top of my reference. Great. Now, the question is, where do these two other 2x4s fall on the cube? Well, one of them certainly falls somewhere around here. If I hold shift while I'm moving it, I can sort of eyeball it, drag it this way. And if I do that, I will ask you to pay close attention to the channel box. So, once again, here it is. I am moving it in the X direction, so keep a close eye on this X value. I will hold shift, I will move it this way, eyeball it, and end up with a value of -50 some such. I can copy that value, up, go back to my original, drag it some amount that I know is wrong, paste that value into my transform X, and delete the negative sign. Then I get it perfectly mirrored. Or I can delete this, select the first one we moved, and go to Mesh Mirror. There's a tool in Maya that does this so that you don't have to care. I can click the mirror button, and if I do that, oh no, why has the mirror not worked? Well, that's because we moved it into the negative axis. Take a look at our negative X value. So we are attempting to mirror it in the negative direction. It won't work. If I take the negative and I set it to plus, bada bing bada boom, we have mirrored it across the axis. Who did I lose? I know I lost someone. Great. Yes.
So did it duplicate it in the movement, or is it?
It's not a duplicate. If I click on it, they are both one object.
Okay.
You can make it so that it duplicates it. That is a setting. Cut geometry on, direction, merge threshold. It actually might be inside of these, now that I think about it. If you click the happy little box next to the mirror thing, you will open up settings. If you do that, you've got combine with original. If you unclick that, then you will end up with a duplicate. Okay, for the person that I lost, we'll start from the top. I have an object. I'm going to move it some amount of this way. There's the this way object. I have a value here. I can see that it's negative. Good. I can click that object, go to my mesh window up top, go to mirror, which is about halfway down. I can click that mirror button. Knowing that I have a negative X translate, I change this negative direction to a positive, and we're good. If, for some reason, my reference was not oriented to the X plane, if for some reason I was going on the Y plane, okay, or the Z plane, sorry, and I had done this way around, then I can take a look at my translate negative Z, and when I attempt to mirror it, I can change my axis of mirroring from X to Z, and from negative to positive, and I would end up with the same result. Great. Yes.
When you click on that big bar right there, it says there's a different scale for X, Y, and Z.
So it does. Huh. I don't know how that ended up mixed up.
I think it's because you shrunk it down.
Oh, that's true. Yes, I did shrink it. Thank you. I knew I wasn't going crazy, but I couldn't tell you why.
Just not yet.
What was I up to? Yes. Let's eyeball this and mirror it around. Now, since I have not made it a new object, since I've just mirrored it and it is still combined, if I ever decide that I need to move these planks on the outside in, I cannot move them separate. They move together. Unless I go to my face select, and I just select all of them on one side. Good? Good. Now these are my 3 bars that will go on top of my crate. I can take a look at my crate reference, and I can see that this distance, I'm pointing at my monitor as if you'll be able to see it, curves, draw. I'm using this for the purposes of explaining. I can see that this distance from here to there, right, is roughly the same as this distance. The length of my 1x2. So, if I wanted to accurately position these, what I can do is duplicate them. Actually, I'm going to go to object mode. I'm going to go back to my polymodeling because that's anything. I'm going to go to separate. If you have combined and separated objects before, you'll recognize separate as the thing that separates them into separate models. Now I can just select one of these. Pop. That is another way of just selecting one of them, but you will end up with them in a group. Select them both, drag them out of the group. Pop. Now they're not in the group. You can select them both again, go to Edit, delete by type history, and that'll get rid of the group. If anyone missed that, it's recorded. So, now that I have them separated, what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this one. And I'm going to hit D again. And I'm going to use the V, hold V key, to move the pivot over to the edge. And if I do that, yes.
Sorry, how do you duplicate again?
Hold Shift while you drag the object,
Oh, yeah.
or just hit Control D. Yes.
My pivot will not snap to the vertices.
Yeah, mine neither.
Oh, okay. If it won't snap to the vertices, what you can do is you can change it from T to R. And then you can hit 4 so that you get the wireframe view. That way you can still select your objects, and you should be able to snap it to vertices. Is that true? Now I should be able to hit 4. See the wireframes. Yeah, and if you select any of them, you should be able to hold V and snap to vertices. You are currently in D mode.
Oh, I thought it was trying to get D mode.
Well, D mode is the step for moving the pivot over to the side, but once you have it on the side, you can exit D mode.
Oh, I thought it wasn't on the side.
Well, it's on this side, which is where we want it, because we're going to line up the edges together.
Yeah, I don't think it was like on the right there.
So, I am going to hit the D key, and I'm going to move my pivot to the side of my 1x2, and I'm going to hold the V key again to move my 1x2 up against the edge of the crate, up against my reference cube. And then I can do that same thing for the original one. Drag it slightly out to the side, hit D, align it to this side, hold V, and align it to the new guide I just made. Please. Thank you. There we go. Now I know that the distance of this bar away from the edge of my reference cube is precisely what I wanted it to be. So I'm going to hit 5. I'm going to delete the reference cube that I don't care about. And now I know that this one piece of wood is exactly where it should be. And I can repeat my mirror that I did before, delete the old one that we know is wrong, mirror this one, set it to positive. Now they're both in the right place. Good. That is a portion of it done. Next up, the planks that go under it. Well, that's easy. We're gonna make another wood. There it is. Thank you. We can see from our reference that it is roughly the same thickness. So we're gonna use the same thickness value. There's a 1/2. It was set to 2.54, 2.54, 2.54. And we're going to scale it up. But we can't use the center one because if we scale the center one, then it becomes thicker. So we're just going to use the plane one, and we're going to create a plane. Fill it out. I'm going to make it slightly too big for our reference cube, and I will explain why shortly. I will hold the D key, snap my pivot to the top of this plane, and then move it to snap to the bottom of these 3 pipes. And this is going to be the lid to my crate. What I'm going to do from here is I'm going to go to faces. I'm going to select just the side faces. I'm going to go back to having my layer on reference. I'm going to go back to my forward view so that I can make sure that I can snap to the vertexes of my reference. I'm going to hit the V key and snap the sides of my lid to match the dimensions of the crate. That way I don't have to worry about adjusting the scale slider to make sure that it fits. And switch back to T. I now have a perfectly sized lid. Yes? Any questions? No. Good. So, what we can do from here, the bottom of the crate, same size as the lid. Hold shift, drag it down. Hold D, move the pivot to the bottom of my crate. Go to my side view, make sure that it is snapped to the bottom of my grid. There it is. Bottom of the crate. Except, oh no, Alex, what have you done? Well, if we look at the sides of the crate, there's actually a bit of distance between the top of my crate and the sides of the box because there's these 2 extra bars. Luckily, those bars are the same ones we have up top. So I can grab one of these bars, duplicate it, grab one of these bars, I'll grab the middle bar, duplicate it over here, rotate it around, and slam it out. D, make sure that it's lined up to the outside of my box, hold V, it's going to end up somewhere around there. Drag this down. We can worry about how tall it is later. And we're going to end up with 2 of them. How far away from the edge is it going to be? I'm going to zoom in on this. Okay. The side panel on our crate is the same as the top panel of our crate. So we can duplicate this. Right. Rotate it around 90 degrees. Drag it out. Come on. Go. D. Make sure that it's lined up to the outside of the panel. Ooh. Hold V. Drag it in. Line it up somewhere in the middle. And scrunch it down. Okay. That is our side panel. This panel's going to end up right against it, so we're going to hit D. Move our pivot so that it lines up to the edge of this panel. Hold V, line it up to the inner edge of our side panel. Good stuff. Go to face view. The bottom face needs to snap to the grid at the bottom of our crate. The top view needs to snap to the lid of our crate. Lines up perfectly with the lid, so this ends up. But it doesn't line up with the top of the planks. So we want it to snap down here. There we go. And now that we have that in position, we can go back to our lid and our base. We can select the side faces and bring those in. That one goes there. Base. This one goes here. Good. And then lastly, our side panel needs to be a little taller because we just sort of slapped it in there. So we grab this face. Our pivot is way off to the side. If I want to keep my view to just this, what I can do is I can move the pivot over to somewhere where I'd like to have my camera. If I just move the pivot without holding the V key, I can put it roughly where I want. And then I have it exactly where I need to see it. That way I can snap this around, select another face. My pivot is out of my camera view. I can go D. Move it over somewhere I want it. Back to the regular view. Hold V. Snap to the side of my crate. Boom. My crate is being built. Who have I lost in that process? Wow. Okay. Let's find out if that is true. Yeah. All right. Okay. Yeah.
This is just watching because I was already.
You're good. No, I'm glad. What was that?
Someone who's watching.
Good. Just watching is good. You've got about a week to turn this in anyways.
Nah, screw it though.
Ha. So, now that I have completed a corner of my crate, I have completed just this corner of my crate, I'm going to do something that might make you a little bit mad. I'm going to delete the other half of it. So I'm going to cut my crate down the middle by going here, adding an edge loop, going here, adding an edge loop, going in here, adding an edge loop. The middle plank can stay. We don't care about the middle plank. This one, we can go ahead and cut in half. This one, I'm going to cut in half. And this one, cut that in half. Good. Now that I've cut my thing in quadrants, I'm going to delete the quadrants that are unfinished. You guys go bye-bye. You guys go bye-bye. If I do this with the pieces that matter, I'm going to mirror them. So, for instance, if I had interesting textures on any of them, I could mirror them around. But realistically, I could just select the ones that I want, mirror this one, set it to positive, under mirror. Now I have it on the back. I can mirror this again, mirror. This time I want it around the Z-axis. And I have all four of those corner posts set up. Same thing with this piece. This piece I know is right. Yes. So that one doesn't need to be mirrored. This piece is a bit long, so I can just delete places that I don't like. Delete the places that I don't like. Mirror this. In the right direction. Good. That's that done. This front face, mirror that. Z-axis. Look above. And lastly, the bottom of the crate. Delete the half that's wrong. And mirror this. Mesh. sure that my edge loops are all straight. Make sure there's nothing broke. Sometimes the mirror tool likes to break things. Alright, there's the beginnings of this crate. I can now get rid of that reference, drag my image plane a bit to the side, add in my side plates, just squares. The side plates are the same as these plates, so I'm just going to grab one, mesh, separate, grab one, rotate it around. If you hold shift while rotating, you will be able to duplicate it, but you won't be able to properly control how much it's rotating. So if I do this, you can see that it starts being very unhappy. Don't do that. Always just duplicate it with the arrows and then rotate it. Look. Oh, I have mucked something up in the rotate tool. If you ever end up in a situation where you're attempting to use the tool and you get this weird effect, this is a clamped to edges type effect where it doesn't let the object transform beyond its bounds. Make sure that your object doesn't have history. And go into your rotate tool and see if it's set to anything strange. Should be good. Nope. Still doesn't like that. Default object, transformation straight. Should be fine. Alright, well, since it's being finicky, is it being finicky on other objects? Where did you go? You're over there now. Oh, well, I don't like that very much. So in this situation, we're going to increment and save. And then we're going to restart Maya. Sometimes that's also part of the workflow. While Maya is restarting, I will go back to my image in Photoshop, and let's talk about these divots. These divots that are in the planks of the wood are the same as the divots that you had in your dice. Make them the same way you had them in your dice. Either extrude divots in, or Boolean stuff in to get those divots. If you do that before you duplicate the planks, then you will have to do quite a lot less divots. Maya's open. Crate demo. Huzzah. My crate is alive. Can I rotate things now? No. Great, you love to see it. Why are you being finicky? Aha, that's because it's in a group. Select both of you, drag it out of the group. You can drag things around in your outliner with the middle click option. Select everything. Edit, delete that history. Please let this solve the problem. Let me rotate the thing. Huzzah! Maya. So, as I was saying, we're going to create the side plates, duplicate the object, rotate it around, snap it to where it needs to be. Holding the B key. Good. Move this over to the side. Stretch it in. Drag that in. We can hold V. Since I added in these vertexes that cut the plank in half, if I hold V while I move this one around, it'll snap to that middle vertex on the plank above it. Like before. Select my face faces. Make sure that this one goes to where it needs to go. Inside face of this other blank. Why do you do this to me? Thank you. There we go. And this face goes to the inside face of the other blank. Go. Good. This is my side plank. I can mirror this to the back half of my mesh. Mesh. Positive direction. Over here. Huzzah. That is the crate. That is the very basics of this crate. Now, I will ask you to turn in a smooth view. If you attempt to smooth this, whack. Sadness. So, thank you. We will need to
Put a bunch of edge loops in.
add in edge loops. Yes, we will fence our corners in.
And combine vertices.
We don't need to combine vertices because it's perfectly fine that all of these objects are separate. If we just mesh combine them, they are now one object, but they all have their own separate pieces. This is acceptable. You don't have to actually union them together. This is perfectly fine. It does have several things that are going wrong with it that we will be talking about on Wednesday. But from here, we will add in our edge loop so that it ends up nice and chamfered. You can do this in two ways. You can use the multi-cut tool, sort of eyeball some edges around your box. If you do this, your boxes will become more square as you go. Or you can select the boundary edge loops of your stuff. Do this, and then you go to bevel, edit mesh bevel, and lower this fraction from 0.5 to 0.2, or even 0.05. How bad is that? That's all right. You do that. They will also end up being more square. You will still need to add in some edge loops, but it'll look nicer in hard view. So, I'm doing all of that. The last thing you want to do on a project is sharpen your edges. Don't do that early on or halfway through. Make sure that that is the absolute last thing you do. So for instance, before I add in edge loops to this piece of wood up top, I would make sure to add in the divots, you know, make sure that everything is fine there. And then I would add in edge loops after I'm certain that adding in those edge loops won't mess up the divots in this piece of wood. The interesting part of this crate are these metal brackets and the rope. We talked briefly last week about how to make that rope. We can go to our curves panel. I will choose to make this as easy as possible. I have spawned a circle. If I go to 4 view, you can see that I'll do that again in 4 view actually. If I go to my 4 view, I can click this circle in curves, and make a circle. Huzzah. I can scale that circle up. There it is. I'm going to make it slightly longer, slightly smaller. Line that up with the side of my crate in the top view. I can see from my reference image that it sort of plugs in. Ooh, can I please scroll? Thank you. Okay, maybe not that much, thank you. I can see that it sort of plugs in behind these two pieces of sidewood. So I can line up my curve so that it just fits in there. Give it a little bit of give, but not too much. And then I can go back to my poly modeling and I can click spline mesh. But if you do this, you will end up with a circle of polygons. So I'm going to start by going right click, control vertex, going to my 4 view, and deleting the vertices we don't want. But curves are evil. If you do that, it will warp the shape. So instead of cutting the circle in half, we're going to cut the mesh in half. I will undo that, go back to my spline mesh, object, spline mesh. I will start by making the rope, and then I will cut it in half. So here's what my rope looks like right now. It's just a tube. I'm going to, you'll notice that the pivot of the tube is off to the side when you first make it. If you have already lined up the circle, you can fix that by going to modify, center pivot. If you've been moving your pivots around a lot up to this point, some of your pivots might not be as nice. So you can just click center pivot, and boom, the pivot snaps to the center of your mesh. Now that we've created our spline mesh, we can open up our attribute editor, go to Sweep Mesh Creator. Have I lost anyone yet? Again, this was done by creating a circle in the nerves, squishing it around, and hitting the spline mesh creator. Now we're going to our attribute editor and opening up the Sweep Mesh Creator. Once we're in the Sweep Mesh Creator, we recognize that this rope is braided. We don't know how many strands it has. You could look that up if you really wanted to. I'm going to go with it has 4. So I'm going to go to distribute, number of instances 4. And if I zoom in on my cord, you can see that there are now 4 strands. I will go to just this view so that you can see what is actually going on. Because we have 4 strands, I'm going to crank down the number of edges on each side. So we're going to go to, say, 5. Great. And I can increase this twist factor to get the cord to start wrapping up on itself. If you hit 2 and it tells you, I don't want to add more twists, you can tell it, I don't care, by just typing in a number. And if you do that, let's go with, I don't know, 100.
I would say that it's too short.
I also think it's a bit too sharp. 60 also it does not happy with. It seemed okay with 40. How bad does that look smoothed? That actually doesn't look too bad. How bad does that look on the inside? Could be worse. We can increase our scale profile. And let's see. Scale instances. Make this a little thicker. There we go. That's starting to look like a cord. It is starting to look a little bit too big though. Let's actually decrease our scale profile. That almost looks right. Let's call that right. So now that I've got this here, I'm going to edit. I'm actually going to hit 4 to make sure that this doesn't look terrible. Edit. Delete my type history. Now my sweep mesh is independent of my nerve circle, so I can move my nerve circle, I can scale it around. If you do not delete by type history, let's undo until I have not done that. Like that. If you do not delete by type history and you accidentally select your nerve circle, you will start transforming your mesh. So you always want to delete by type history on sweep mesh before you start moving it around. Then I'm going to cut it in half. I'm going to cut it in half by selecting faces, selecting half the gosh darn rope, hold shift, select all of these faces, and if you hold shift and select all of these faces, select everything, make sure that we have everything selected. Yep. We can go to mesh. And we can't go to separate because they are not separate objects. Instead, we have to go to edit mesh, detach. If we go to edit mesh, detach, then we can now separate them. They're still considered a singular object. So what we can do is just select all of these and delete them. Because we can just mirror this half later. We're going to line it up to where it needs to be. Roughly here. so that it looks like it's plugged into the wood. Bada bing, bada boom. Mesh, mirror, positive. My crate now has handlebars. Hooray. That is one of the two tricky things about this crate. Yes.
Is it okay to delete the nerve circle after?
Yes, I have already deleted my nerve circle as you said that. The nerve circle can go bye-bye. Provided that you have deleted history on the cord. If you have not deleted history on the cord, deleting the nerves will result in issues. So be aware. Good, so there's the cord on my crate. The other one are these little metal plates. The little metal plates have little metal screws in them. They're also divots. These are fairly easy to do. You can create a cube. You have the cord. You scale up that cube so that it looks roughly the right size. It's the same size as, same width as one of these wooden planks. So we can actually just go in here, make sure that my size is 1 by 1 by 1, make sure that this is 2 by 4 by 2 by 4 by 2 by 4. Make sure that it's too wide. There we go. Drag that roughly to where it's supposed to be. There isn't a clear distance between the middle pipe and these, or between these and that. You can eyeball it to say that it's the same distance as the width of one of these, but for our purposes, don't worry too much about that. So here's my bracket. I'm going to add in some edge loops. This is very thin metal, so don't be too concerned about how thick you make it, but I'm just going to say it's about 1/10 as wide as it should be. Go faces, delete the faces I don't want, back here, back face, bridge the back half of this together, and just sort of position it where I kind of want it. I have the faces selected, go back to my object select, there we go, I have caps lock on. Right, sort of position that roughly where I want it. Thank you. Move it to the back, pull back, snap it in, there we go. This is going to be my metal plate. Right? Is it square? It's square. Good. And this metal plate lies on the border of my lid and the side panel of my box. So I can move my up, D, snap this to the top of my box, hit D again, and snap it to this vertex here, at the top of my box. There we go. And now if I select all three of them, you can see that it lines up perfectly in between the top of the side panel and the bottom of the lid. And I'm going to add in an edge loop just so that you can clearly see what I'm talking about. We'll go 1 edge loop here, 1 edge loop there. Great. If I now select the two side panels, move them. Actually, I'm going to add in another edge loop here just so that you can really see it. There we go. So that is what the side and top panel will look like. And here is my panel just up against them. There's this little cylindrical bit here. I'm not going to worry too much about that. Suffice it is to say that I will accept, for this purpose, just an extrusion of this inwards. Face. If your mesh ever lights up yellow when you have something selected, I'm going to do this on a larger piece of geometry so you can see what I'm talking about. If I go to face select on this thing, and I select a face, and you see all of these yellow and red lines, that means that you've hit the B key. If you hit B again, they will disappear. If you have B hit, that is soft select. This is sometimes okay, but generally not okay. What it means is that everything will sort of move along with the thing you've actually selected. we don't have to worry about that. Just know that if your stuff glows yellow, hit B again, that'll fix it. So, back to our happy little panel. Make sure that these are smoothed, so we can see slightly inside. Go back to our panel, go to faces, go to our 4 view, select the inside face, go to our 5 view, extrude it in, object, drag this slightly up, so it looks fine. And then we can select edge, we're going to select this edge, and we're going to bevel it so that it looks round. We're going to make it that big and add in a couple of subdivisions, and there is our panel in between the two. And there are 2 other ones on the back, same spiel. One over here, one over there. Yes.
Should we make the screws that are in the metal piece?
If you make the screws, how do I want to say this? I'm willing to hand out extra credit if you make the screws, but I won't tell you how to make the screws. I'm perfectly content with you just making the holes for the screws. How's that?
Now I want to figure out how to make the screws.
I will not ask you to make the screws, because screws are generally taught in the course after this, which is modeling for entertainment. This is sufficient for our purposes. Just add in the divots, and you'll be good. Good, good, good. That, whoop, select everything, please. Back to hello, object mode, thank you. Select everything, go back to 1 view, go back to 5 view. If this is starting to look a bit more like a gray blob to you and you can't really figure out where things are, remember that you can always go back to the wireframe unshaded view. That is 2 over to the cube on the viewport. If you do this, you will get all of your grid lines so that you can see where on your gray blob you are. Any questions before we move to the next cube? Great. This has been crate number 1. I'm going to save this. Stuff. And go to new. So, new scene, same spiel, cube. This time our reference image isn't going to be the wooden crate, this time it's going to be the plastic crate. Yeah, image plane, import image. I haven't actually saved the plastic crate yet, so I'm going to go back here. Save jazz. 2. Caps lock on. Download. Up. To Maya. Image plane. Import image. Great. I put this in my downloads folder. Downloads. Great. Oh. Scale it up. Great. So, complicated things about this crate. The wheels and the crenellations up top. Hopefully we can cover all of that today, but if not, we'll cover it on Wednesday. Thank you very much. Everyone has signed the attendance sheet. I like having my students in class. Having my students in class is good. Thank you very much. So, if you do your happy Google image search down the line, here are the dimensions for the C7 computer crate. Make this a little bigger for everyone. It's that big by that wide by that tall. Except that we're in Maya, so our things are backwards. Our height is last. That's 3.5. Our width, or our length, is also 3.5. And did I make this a, no, I just hit 1. Nice. And our thickness, our depth is 19.5. Please let me type 19.5. And then we will convert from inches to centimeters. 5, 5, 5. Great. These are our dimensions for our orange crate. Hold V, hold W, exit to the grid, match it up on one of our orthographic views, and that is the size of our crate. Except that if we pay really close attention, this is just the dimensions of the crate, and it does not give us the dimensions of the wheels. So we're actually going to move our reference up so that we have room to put the wheels on the bottom. View, create layer from selected, put it on top of them. Now the wheels are the tricky part about this one. I'm going to zoom in on the wheels here. Any ideas for making the wheels?
Cylinder.
Cylinders are good options. Let's start with a cylinder. Well, I can spawn cylinder. Well, some arbitrary size. You can attempt to figure out the size of the cylinders. If you want to go into Photoshop and do a bunch of math, you can figure out the diameter of the wheels. I won't stress too much about it. But I'm going to rotate this cylinder around 90 degrees so that it is wheel shaped. Okay, there it is. And I'm going to reduce our poly count because we do not need 20 subdivisions by axis. We're going to make this maybe 16 at worst. So here's our cylinder. We're going to scrunch it down to wheel size. We're going to pay attention that the outer rim of the wheel is a little bit smaller than the interior rim of the wheel. So we're going to add 2 subdivisions going sideways. We're going to grab these middle faces. And we're going to extrude them out a bit. We're actually just going to scale them out a bit. Come on. There we go. Just enough to get that rounded wheel shape. We're also going to notice that there's several subdivisions on the side of the wheel. So we're going to go to our poly cylinder, and we can add caps. If you add caps after you have grabbed faces and done things, Maya will generally not be happy about it, but we haven't done anything too egregious, so it might let us play with them. So I've gone ahead and added 4 caps. We can see that the top side of our cylinder now is subdivided into 4 rings. That should be plenty for our purposes. We have the outer ring, which is great, the inner ring, which goes slightly in, and then the innermost ring, which comes back out. So we can just grab these interfaces, make sure that you're doing it on both sides, make sure that you haven't accidentally extruded it halfway through. Extrude those in, Control E, drag them in. Take a look, make sure that nothing's breaking. Hit preview, make sure that it looks like the shape of the wheel. Okay. I'm actually going to drag the reference image over a little bit. Select the image point over here. Drag this in so that we can really see that wheel up against ours. That's almost right. These interfaces probably need to be moved in a little bit more. Whoop. Back to my one view, please. Thank you. Like these faces, like these faces. Same thing on the other side. These faces. These faces. Scrunch them in a bit with the scale tool. They should actually probably line up to that middle bit that we extruded earlier. There we go. We can see that it's very sharp because this is hard plastic on the inside. So we don't have quite as much of a transition. So we can add in an edge loop here, an edge loop there. Same thing on the other side. 10% edge loop here, 10% edge loop there. That looks like the wheel. Great. The metal bit that plugs into the wheel, any thoughts?
Cylinder.
Cylinder is an option. Alright, let's do it cylinder. Object mode, cylinder. So we're gonna line up this cylinder. Remember that we spawned it in very small, so it's inside here. We're gonna drag that cylinder up, just see what we're working with. Rotate it around so that it lines up with the other cylinder. Lower our poly count down to 16 instead of 20. Properly lined up. And we're going to scale it up a bit. Great. We're also going to make it very wide. And move it down. So this cylinder is the beginnings of the thing that plugs into the wheel. So, notice that the metal frame for the wheel axis is off-center. There's a little bit of give behind the actual axis of the wheel. That's why our cylinder is slightly to the back of where the axis should be. I'm gonna position it there seems good. Great. I'm going to add a cap subdivision. So we get these caps on, and I'm now going to select the innermost faces of that cap. So I will go to Control 1, so that I don't select anything else. Go to my fore view, go to my face view, and just select those two inner circles. Going back, then Control 1 again, then 4. I want to line up those caps to the center of the wheels behind it. So I'm going to hold V and position it there. If I hit fore view, I can now see that those circles line up with the circles on the bigger wheel. That is my actual wheel axis, off center to the frame. Since that's my actual axis, I can take a look at what that axis looks like. It's got a little red ring, or a little black ring, so I can here. Since I've already moved it, if I attempt to add in more caps, it will scream at me, or at least it should scream at me. Oh yeah, it screams at me. Oh. Let's undo that. Instead, what we're going to do is use the multi-cut tool to add in a smaller cap. Let's go with 20, 20, 20. Yes, this is tedious. Don't worry about it. You will get used to this. We will add in a smaller ring on the inside of the cylinder. Go. The last two edgelets. And we can now put face. Select these interior faces. Make sure we haven't selected anything silly. We're good. Extrude these in. And an edge of line. And that's our wheel axis. Now, we don't have the back looking symmetrical. If we want to make it symmetrical, we can select our object, Control 1. We are going to cut our object in half with the multi-cut tool. We are going to delete the half we don't like. And we're going to mirror the half we do like. So in this case, we're across the Z-axis. There we go. And now we have something that looks right on both sides. Huzzah. Go back to Control 1. Good. Now, of course, the axis doesn't entirely pierce through. The frame of the axis doesn't go straight through the damn wheel. So we need to cut some pieces of metal off of this. So, go back to object. We're going to add in an edgelet here. Let's go with 30. Does that seem alright? Sure. Great. Go to our object. Go back to Control 1 view again. We actually don't care about all of these faces now. We only care about these faces. So we can do this. Object mode, bridge. Object mode, mesh. Do I want to bridge the back first? Yeah, let's bridge the back first, actually. Edge. Bridge. Ugh, that is an Engon. That is the worst kind of Engon, but you gotta bear with it. If you don't want to bear with it, what you do is, instead of using our mirrored, so I will now explain what happened here. Let's talk about this because this is interesting. So the frame of our cylinder can't go through the wheel. So I'm deleting the back half of the wheel, and now we have this hole. If we bridge that hole, we end up with an Engon. Everyone agrees with this. Engon bad. Engon bad because smooth looked weird. So our solution to this is to move our pivot to the back face of this object. Object mode, move the pivot to the back of the object, and now I'll go to edit mesh or mesh mirror. But we already talked about how if we do this, then it appears way over there. We don't want that yet. We want it on the back of this one. So instead, what we're going to do is change the axis position from world to object. And if we do that, we should. Now our axis is wrong. We're going to swip this back to Y, and now we've slammed it on the back of the object instead of mirroring it across the world. We also get this happy little doodad that we can drag to make it as thin or as thick as we want. I'll make it nice and thin. That gives us a hole in it. We don't want that hole. So I'm going to pull it back just a bit. I'm actually going to pull it back until that hole is just barely not crossed. That seems fine. Good. Now that I've done that, I can mirror it again. Mesh mirror. Whoop. Mesh mirror. But now I'm mirroring it around the world axis, so I do need to mirror it across the z-axis. And now I have two frames that look identical and are on either side of our wheel. There it is. Good. We're happy. Now, from here, we need to create the weird square part of the frame. So, since we started with the cylinder, what I'm going to do is I'm going to decide a certain distance. Let's go with the upper quarter. Yeah. Let's go with that. So, what we want is we want these faces to become square. So we're going to hold the scale tool. And if you hold two faces that are angled, I'm going to control one so that you can see what's going on. I've selected two faces at a slant. I can use the scale tool to make it flat. So I'm going to make it flat vertically. Control 1. Those are now flat vertically. I will select these in the back. I will select all the way around. And here comes the fun part. I'm going to deselect the ones that I made straight. Deselect the ones that have my slope. I'm going to drag these around. This is straight. Yep. Okay. Deselect these. This is going to be the basis for the frame. Line this up so that front edge is still straight. You can see sort of where that frame shape is coming from. I'm going to put on my wireframe so you can really see what's going on. I'm actually going to have my grid as well. Good. It's going to look weird, but that's fine. Now that we've moved them slightly away from the cylinder, we're going to squash them so that they're straight. Going to select these front faces. Make sure that they're straight. Again with the scale tool. Okay. Going to move these faces. Oh, hello. Can I? Thank you. Select these faces. Move them up above the wheel. Make sure that they're nice and wide. Yep. right. I think it needs a little bit more clearance. Move it up. There we go. That's our frame for the axis. Delete the back half, because we don't like the back half. Re-mirror it. Mesh mirror. Z-axis. Thank you. Okay, now we're here. These are the two sides of the frame. Now that we're here, we're going to go to face. We're going to grab the upper faces of these two things. We're going to extrude these faces up. Make sure that nothing broke. Nothing broke. Good. And we're going to select these interfaces. Good. Hello, please. Thank you. These faces and these faces. And we're going to break them together. Let's twist that around. Haha. We have created the wheel. The wheel. Now, again, you are not required to make the screws, but if you'd like to, I would be very happy. We don't have to combine these objects, but if we do combine them, so go to mesh combine, then I have a very easy time of just dragging them around and making 4 of them. Boom. I have created wheels. Then move my image plane out of the way. There's 4 wheels. That's the hard part of this one done. I'm going to return on my grid. We're going to see that my wheels are slightly in my grid. I'm going to select my wheels. Going to hit D. Move my pivots to the bottom of the wheels. Snap my wheels. Oop. Okay, move my pivot to the D, the pivot bottom of the wheels. W, X. Snap my wheels to the grid. Roughly where I want them. Yes. Line this up in my happy little cube. Good. These 2 wheels are a bit too far behind. Drag them in. You can line this up. Good, 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 good. That's where my wheels are going to be. I'm going to turn my template square off of template so that I can move it around again. Move that so that it rests happily on top of my wheels. Good. Switch it back to template. Good. Now, the other hard part about this crate are the crenellations up top. Any thoughts about the crenellations? Crenellations just means grooves or crunchies, as I like to call them. Any thoughts? Yes.
Well, it's not about that, but about the wheels.
Yeah, the wheels.
Would we need to make them like turn like that pictures?
No, you don't have to line up the wheels to match the picture. Don't worry about that.
If anyone makes this crate, you're a saint, because this looks really hard.
This crate?
Yeah.
This crate is probably one of the harder ones, I will admit. But it's a very fun crate to work on. I'm about to show you that it's not actually as hard as you might think. So.
That was the crate I had started working on.
Mm-hmm.
And the wheels and all that.
Well, I just showed you how to make the wheels in under 15 minutes, so. I don't know. Worst case scenario, you can always watch the video back.
The wheels were just something else.
The wheels, to me, long-time modeler perspective, the wheels to me are the easy part of this crate beyond making the rectangular prism. The hard part, for me, is figuring out how I'm going to model this top chunk. Because this top chunk seems like a mess, especially from this perspective. But my solution to the top chunk, which I believe is the hard part, is to make it separately and then just sort of glue it on. What do I mean by that? Well, I'm going to, I've apparently somehow smoothed my reference template. Give me a second. Thank you. Don't do that again. So, very roughly, I have created a crate. The top part of my crate needs to be a little taller, a little wider. Make sure that my crate fits inside my box. Put this on reference, put 4. This side of my crate goes against this box. This side of my crate goes up against this side of the box. This side of my crate goes to the top. This side of my crate goes down to the bottom. Scrunch down the bottom of my crate. Might have to move my wheels in to fit the crate properly. And lastly, move the top of the crate down to make room for the Frenchies. So, this is my crate. Whoop. Turn this back to template mode, please. Thank you. This is my crate, my very rough crate. I'm going to start by adding the crunchies. My crunchies are going to be a cube. Make this fit over top of my crate. Whoop, 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 whoop. Good. There they are. Now what I'm going to do is going to seem weird, but you're going to enjoy it. I'm going to select the cube, select my crate, image, cube and crate image, hit Control 1 so that I can see both of them. Good. I'm going to subdivide this crate down the middle, and I'm going to start counting. So on my crate, I can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teeth. So we'll check that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 teeth. Good, 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 good. Come back over here. Actually, I'm going to go to object mode. I'm just going to add in my subdivisions. So let's go 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's the bare minimum. And 1 along depth. Good. So this is going to be the start of my teeth. I'll go to vertex, and I'll start dragging them around. How do I want to do this? I actually think I want 9. Vertex edges. You. These 4 will go up, and the other 4 will go down. You. And this is going to be the start of my teeth. I'm going to add in a couple extra subdivisions. We're going to go halfway on each of these. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, whoop, and 1, 2. There we go. Good stuff. Doesn't look like much right now. We're going to use these vertexes to add in the flatness by selecting 2 of them, using our scale tool, evening them out, selecting 2 of them, using our scale tool, evening them out, using this, here, here, this is the initial shape of those crenellations along the middle. Now, because I'm doing it this way, the bottom half won't match. We're going to fix that in a bit. And cool. All right. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, I'm not crazy. Now our teeth are created, but they don't line up right. So we're going to split those 2, these 2, these 2, these 2. Make sure that I don't have anything stuck on the bottom. Scale them so that they're the right height. These 2, these 2, these 2, and these 2. Make sure I don't have anything stuck on the bottom. Definitely do. Go view. Deselect the bottom. Back to my perspective view. Get those out. Stuff. Now, hold Shift, add an edge loop halfway around the side, and delete the bottom. Because the bottom does not matter. Because we're just going to be slapping this on top of the crate below it. So that's that. Now that we have the pattern laid out, we can select half of it, go to Edit Mesh, hit Detach, and boom, now I have two halves of the lid. Who did I lose? Okay, any questions about how I got this one? Yes.
How did you do that thing where you just made the lid in the picture visible?
In the what?
Just the lid in the picture visible?
Oh, Control 1. If you have anything selected and you hit Control 1, you will just select that one and everything else will be hidden. This works with objects, this works with faces. This is all just Control 1. So, with this done, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, yes, is there a question over there? No, someone's just drinking some water. Water is good. Drink all the water in the world. Hydration. That's very good. I'm going to make sure that I'm centered on my top view. Looks like I'm centered on my top view. Good, 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 good. I believe I might have added in one too many faces here. I'm actually going to delete this face. Just to make sure that it's perfectly even. Good. I need to bridge these two sides now. Good. Good. Bridge those. Good. Good. So, what's that? Okay, that's fine. So, now that I have this done, what I'm going to do is again select these faces. Oh, I selected the bottom of my crate. Select these, object mode, don't select the crate. Low object mode, thank you. Just select the lid. Faces, select half of them, detach. Detach. View. Object mode. If I go to object mode, I can still move them together. If I go to faces, I can now select one half or the other. I'm going to go ahead and move all of this down onto where my crate should be. I'm going to scale it so that it fits on top of my crate. So that's really centered on there. Scrunch it in a little bit. Scrunch it in a little bit. Teeth are still there. Looks like we'll fill over the crate. Good stuff. Next part is to give them a little bit of up, a little bit of a bump. If I go to this image, it's a little bit easier to see that they don't close perfectly. They just sort of have a little bump shape. We can do that easily. Go back to my perspective view. Go back to my teeth. Thank you. Faces. Faces, thank you. I'm going to extrude these up. And the faces that I don't want going up, I'll go to edge. Move this whole edge down. Whoop. To get that diagonal feel. And same thing with all of the inner teeth. Q, U, and U. Put those down. And then do the opposite with the other one. Faces. Don't care about the top. Extrude them up to about the same height as their neighbors. Control 1 so I can see which ones I'm selecting. We want this edge, this edge, this edge, and this edge. Oops, not that one. That one. Thank you. Control 1. Move move these down. There we go. Now I get those happy little bump shapes. Move the back end down. Good. That's the difficult part of this lid. Other fun parts. These bumps showed us how to make those last week. This is an interesting shape that I encourage all of you to practice with. We can achieve that shape by, if I were to, let's say, I'm going to explain it on this one. Here is this shape. I'm going to select these edges, move them down all the way. Ooh. Oh, I apparently messed up the bridge here. Okay. Here, here, go to my, vertex tool, up, go there, we do, and we do as well. Good. Small feeling, select some edges, you, all the way to you, Control E, nope. Stop there, thank you. And all the way to you. Control E, put it down. This is where I'm going to add in this shape here. Bring it up a little. These faces need to have extruded bumps. We can carve those in with the multi-cut tool. So we're going to go around each one of these rectangles. They line up with the teeth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. This one, this one, this one, this one at the end. We're going to add in some edge loops by extruding faces. This one, you. Is that right? Is that a good distance? No, it's even. So let's actually do you two, you two. Can I space it out by 2? 1, 2, skip 2, 1, 2, skip 2, 1, 2, skip 2. No, I can't. Sure, let's do these. So, Control E. We're going to add in an offset. Not too big of an offset. There we go. Now I've got this shape. And take the bottom faces of that, extrude those in. And we're going to get something that looks like that. We're going to add a couple edge loops to the inside of that indent. So one there. And around a little bit closer, one there. A couple along the inside to properly fence it off. Again, don't fence anything until you're at the very end of your process. If you add in those fences, you get that shape. Turn off my wireframe. Turn off my wireframe. Thank you. Object select 3. Deselected. You start getting those indents that are on the side of our panels. Or you can build them separately and combine them in later. It is 5 o'clock. So, we've got, I think, 10 minutes left in class. So, does anyone have any questions they would like to ask? We'll pick up from here on Wednesday. Yes?
So, the writing on the crates, do you want us to add that?
The writing on the crate you do not have to add. I assume you mean this text.
Yeah.
We're not texturing the crates. Don't worry about it.
Oh, yeah.
That is entirely printed on. That's someone else's problem. Or your problem in about 3 years if you decide to go into materials and texture. Do you have a question?
Yes. Okay, so you use the multi-cut tool for like making full-on loops.
To get what?
Yeah. Full control.
So.
Holy crap. Alright, thank you.
No problem. Hold control with the multi-cut tool will give you loops. Holding control and shift with the multi-cut tool will allow you to move it in increments of 10% along an edge loop.
Okay.
If you have not held control and you just add in edges and you hold Control Shift, you will get right angles. So if I zoom in here, let me do this on this one. If you hold Control Shift, it'll always drop a right angle line and you can't move that up or down.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Multi-bit tool. Yes, question in the back.
Is it fine if we change materials colors, just like for ourselves, if it's just easier?
Is it fine if you change the materials colors for yourself?
Yeah.
I would encourage you that if you do that, to change it back before you turn it in.
Yeah, it's hard to see all the different textures.
Yeah.
How do you get rid of the red wiring when you boolean something? I've completely forgotten.
Delete by type history. Edit menu, delete by type history.
Thank you.
No problem. More questions, more answers. Don't hesitate to ask. Yes.
In game design, there is like more options for us in this university than just remodeling, right?
Right. So in game design, outside of 3D modeling, you have texturing, you have programming in Unreal, you have environment design. Technically speaking, there's different kinds of animation and technical work. You can be a character rigger, you can be a character animator, you can be a level design, laying out sort of things. Level design and environment design are a bit different. One is entirely 3D assets, making stuff that's going to be in the world, and then level design is arranging it in a way that looks pretty. Yeah, there's a lot of different aspects to game design.
Like they offer most of those here, right?
Yeah. But they're not like, saying we offer them is a bit of a loaded question. We teach all of it, but the concentration is game design. You will learn all of some of it. But as you go through the program, especially in the junior and senior level courses, those are a lot more project based. So you will be with 4 other people that are also in game design in those projects, minimum. And someone will say, I want to make the characters, I want to make the environments. And you will end up being like, I want to make the materials. And the other 3 people will look at you like you're crazy, because why would anybody ever want to go into materials? But then you'll become the materials artist, and that'll be your thing, and you can specialize as much as you want. Any further questions? All right, we've got 5 minutes. Yeah. Oh, wait, one in the back.
Where do we find in the D2O? Where do we find the videos?
Yeah. You should be able to go to D2L, go to content. Why is it so zoomed in? Oh gosh. D2L, content, class resources, video and information, blah, 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 blah. We have the old video list. These are videos by Todd and Steven and other professors. And then we have down at the bottom, class video recordings. I don't know why it's down at the bottom. I can try and move that up. Let's drag that up to the top. Class video recordings, there they are. You click on that, and here's some links. So this is my August 30th YouTube video. Recording. It's me. Do you pick up my audio? You do. Great, the microphone. Same thing with the other ones. You should have access to these. I guess clicking on them doesn't quite work. If you open them in a new tab, it does. Recording. Let's talk about. And they're uploaded there usually the day after class, because it takes about 10 hours to upload one of these videos to YouTube because it's 2 hours long.
Wait, how long does it take you?
Like 10 hours to upload it to YouTube.
Oh.
I mean, it's a 2-hour recording, so it'll be up.